Hey, it's Awesome from Korked. Let's talk about that volleyball scene from Top Gun. In one of the few Tom Cruise movies that doesn't feature a gratuitous shot of him sprinting, he still felt the need, no, not the need for speed, but rather to show off the fact that he's athletic with an extremely forced game of 2-on-2 sand volleyball. Now, it's important to note that this scene is pivotal in the movie's plotline, because later on, I'm lying. There's literally no reason for this scene to be in here. That'd be like in Jurassic Park adding a scene of Dr. Grant and Ellie Sattler playing a game of pickleball. Like, is it needed for the story? Not at all. But am I happy they added it anyway? You bet your sweaty and probably pretty sandy abs. The screenwriters were probably like, but Mr. Cruise, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever to throw in a volleyball scene into this action film. It does literally nothing to further the plot. And Tom Cruise probably said,
I have told you, and now I want it. And if you don't do it, you're out.
Now, I will say that aside from Twilight,
Whoa! I'm sorry. I told them not to let me play.
Meet the Parents, John Tucker Must Die, and literally any other movie where people get absolutely pelted in the head with a volleyball, this is probably the greatest volleyball scene in a movie ever. In fact, you can argue that Top Gun is the greatest volleyball movie of all time. With all due respect, of course, to The Miracle Season, Air Bud Spikes Back, and Castaway. Now, before we get into Top Gun's Misty Mav trainer and Goosey Walsh Jennings, we must first set this up by taking it to the scene right before, where Mav and Slider trade verbal jabs.
Crash and burn, huh, Mav?
And old Les Grossman drops one of the biggest burns of all time.
Slider. You stink.
I mean, I guess with dialogue like this, it now makes sense why these screenwriters forced a random volleyball scene into their fighter jet movie. Now, I will say that if nowadays someone hit you with a dig this harsh,
You stink.
you'd either ignore it because it's a terrible clapback, or you'd dig up old racist tweets of theirs to try and get them canceled. But this movie came out 36 years ago, so they handled this the way they handled most major conflicts in the mid-80s, with a game of shirtless sand volleyball set to Kenny Loggins playing with the boys. And if you thought the sexual tension in this movie was already palpable in the elevator scene, the ladies' restroom scene, or the bar scene,
I heard that about you. You like to work alone.
just wait till you see this scene. Shirtless, sweaty dudes just showing off their own Top Guns while playing volleyball in between random wolf howls. So the scene starts off with an overly sweaty Iceman spinning probably the oldest volleyball you will ever see. Like a ball too old for Play It Again sports. No. They got it from Play It Again and Again and Again and Again sports. Now you may be asking, why is Iceman so sweaty before the game even began? I don't know. I mean, he's Iceman. Condensation maybe? So Jack Reacher checks his watch and yells, "Let's go!" Probably because he has an appointment to get more Botox filler immediately after this. And honestly, I can't remember. Did I mention that every guy is just shirtless in this scene? Except for Goose, of course, who you know is smuggling a dad bod under that shirt. It's like when you go to the pool with hot dudes. You're like, yeah, I think I'm just going to keep my shirt on, thanks. He probably saw everyone else's six-pack and opted not to show off his beer belly. I mean, more like Goose Island, am I right? Now, the next minute and 14 seconds of this movie showcases some of the most homoerotic volleyball shots you will ever see in a movie about a Navy flight academy. Just incredible volleys back and forth and a true test of flight school. Because if there's three things I want my country's armed forces to be good at, it's bumps, sets, and spikes. Which that reminds me, did you know that Tom Cruise does his own stunts? Yeah, little known fact, he does. Except for maybe this one, where his character spikes a ball over the net. I mean, come on, Ethan Hunt here is like 5'6". Either that's a stuntman, or they're playing on a tennis net. And notice that Last Samurai keeps checking his watch. But again, he can't miss that appointment. He's already moved it twice. But the game goes on, and Maverick just continues to prove he's the greatest athlete in jeans since Brett Favre. Which I will admit, playing any sport in jeans, let alone one in sand, has to be the most uncomfortable thing since Tom's interview with Oprah.
What has happened to you? That's how I feel about it. Something happened to you.
I'm in love.
So then Jerry Maguire checks his Casio one more time and realizes, oh crap, I gotta bounce. So he just walks off. And Goose Island runs over and tries to get him to play one more. But he says, if I miss this appointment, how do you ever expect me to look like Norm Macdonald one day? Plus, it's gonna take me hours to get all this sand out of my Levi's. And then he heads out, but not before Iceman and Slider hit them with one last dig.
You pussy!
Ouch, that's gotta hurt worse than that teeth clamp thing Iceman does. Although calling someone a pussy pales in comparison to a "you stink" blast.
You stink.
And one weird thing that's always bothered me about this scene, even though it's really hot out and Maverick is sweating harder than Tom Cruise at a Scientology audit, he puts on his thick leather jacket before leaving. I mean, weird, right? But if you think throwing on a thick leather coat while you're sweating in the hot summer heat after a sexy game of volleyball with your bros is weird, it takes a back seat to what he does in literally the very next scene, which is driving to his instructor's house and just casually asking to use the shower.
If you don't mind, I'm gonna just take a quick shower.
What is this a thing? Is this what people did back then? Just casually make a pit stop on the way home to ask to use someone else's shower?
Yeah, I do mind.
I mean, that's a weirder move than jumping on someone else's couch.
Magazine. Yes! You ever felt this way before?
Then again, maybe he thought he had to shower because he stinks. So there you have it. The most epic volleyball scene in cinematic history, proving once and for all that Tom Cruise is an athlete. That is until the end of the movie when he discredits any athleticism with his chucking of Goose's dog tags into the ocean. What the hell kind of throw was that, Mav? He throws dog tags like he's the starting third baseman for his company's softball team. If his company was the Radio City Rockettes. If the Sandlot Boys really wanted the ultimate comeback, they should have clapped back with, "You play ball like Tom Cruise." Either that or,
You stink.